Hello, everyone. I thought I would review the 1995 version of The Scarlet Letter. Now, I don't have a copy of that film. I saw it on Amazon Prime, but this is the book version that I have. And, I honestly think that the 1995 version of The Scarlet Letter may be one of the worst literary adaptations of all time. When I saw it, it was absolutely, it's beyond terrible. I mean, terrible doesn't do it justice because have you ever watched an adaptation or even just a film in general that was so off the mark that when you watched it, you literally could not believe what was happening? It's like you're entirely in shock. It's so awful. And I believe the 1995 version of The Scarlet Letter fits that description quite well. Now, before I get into it, I will talk about some of the few good things that I liked about it, because I think that's only fair. Um, for one, I really love the musical score. In fact, I would say it's actually probably one of my favorites. I mean, this is a perfect example of a film where where the musical score is far better than the movie. I would give the film an A plus if I were just going by the musical score. In fact, I still listen to the musical score to this day, and I've used it in some of my videos. So it's one of my favorite scores, um, but it does not save the film. It's a highly romantic score. I really like it. And the second thing that I liked is I liked Robert Duvall's performance as Roger Chillingworth. I thought he was very good, and I had doubts about him at first because I thought, is he going to be able to convincingly portray a 17th century Puritan? Because Robert Duvall is known more for doing westerns and playing gruff cowboys, but he actually pulled it off. His accent was actually very authentic. I mean, he came off convincing to me, and he brought that sense of menace that Roger Chillingworth has from the book. So was a standout performance, and I also thought Gary Oldman was all right. I mean, there wasn't really anything wrong with him. I mean, he wasn't spectacular, but he worked in the role. And I also thought the production design overall was well done. So those are the things that I liked about the film. Now I'll get to the things that I didn't like. First of all, Demi Moore, I think she looks right for the part visually, but that spell is broken when she speaks because her accent is very inconsistent, and it seems like she did not put a whole lot of effort into her performance. And I just think overall she was miscast. They needed an actress who could more convincingly portray someone from that time period. I mean, she's not absolutely terrible, but I definitely think she was miscast. Um, but the film still could have been all right if everything else had worked, um, but it didn't. Now, firstly, I'll talk about all the inaccuracies. At the beginning of the film, during the opening credits, it says "freely adapted." That from the Scarlet Letter. That's putting it rather delicately. I mean, that's definitely an understatement. um, but in the book, for those of you who haven't read it, Um, you have Hester Preen or whatever her name's kind of hard to say, but who is found guilty of adultery because she has a baby. An A is put on her chest, and she has to walk around with the A. And you have Reverend Dimsdale, who is very sympathetic towards her. You don't really know why, but then Reverend Dimsdale is being tormented by Roger Chillingworth, Hester Preen's husband, even though he doesn't know that it's her husband. And then and so he ends up suffering psychologically. And at the very end, it's finally revealed that he was the man who had the affair with Hester. And then he rips off his shirt, and he has sewn an A into his chest. And he finally reveals his guilt, and he collapses and dies because he can't handle the emotional pressure. So the original book is very much about guilt and sin and all of that, and the consequences of it, the consequence of living within a Puritan society. um, the movie doesn't really deal with any of that very much. Firstly, it's not a mystery. In the movie, you actually see the affair taking place, so it's not a mystery. You see Reverend Dimsdale be tempted and have the affair with Hester and all of that. So that's a deviation. In many ways, they turned the Scarlet Letter more into a romance than a mystery. And even then, though, I still think the film could have worked on its own if they had landed the ending. If the ending had still been tragic, I think that it still could have worked somewhat, even though it would have been flawed. But no, they completely failed at the end because instead of the tragic ending, right after the Reverend reveals himself. Of course, he doesn't take off his shirt, which is the most iconic scene in the book. He just says, "Okay, I did it," because they were about ready to execute Hester for witchcraft, which is not in the book at all. Um, but then Indians attack, and they start attacking people, and and they killed many of the town elders and all that. I'm thinking, what? That's not in the book. Where did that come from? I mean, I really couldn't believe it. And yes, it's kind of thrilling to see a lot of these Puritan town elders get what they deserve, but it's not in the book. It comes completely out of nowhere. But even worse, at the end, Hester and the Reverend just ride off together into the sunset. I mean, that's not a tragedy. That's not the tragedy of the book. And I was thinking to myself, I can't believe this. What is this crap? I mean, that's literally what I thought. I was so disappointing. I mean, it was somewhat of a traumatic experience for me. I was so disappointed by it. I mean, I just became completely disillusioned. And the um, the uh, the movie has no respect for the source material whatsoever. I mean, it is highly disrespectful of Nathaniel Hawthorne. I mean, they essentially turn it into a romance novel, which the book is not. It is a dark gothic tragedy. And in many ways, I would like to know what who is this? Who is the 1995 adaptation for? It's certainly not for the lovers of the book, but the people who haven't read it don't know what it is. So who is it for? I mean, it's just I have never been so angry watching a film before in my life because it was so disrespectful. I mean, it essentially took what was a gothic tragedy and turned it into romantic fluff, and not even it completely betrays the themes, but by having the characters have no sense of guilt, having no sense of remorse, and essentially having and it's not a moral universe in this that the film is not, it's not a moral universe. It's not a universe plagued by guilt and morality. It's purely a universe where where passion and sentiment rule over the larger um, thematic aspects of tragedy and redemption. Um, that is essentially what the book, I mean, the film becomes, and so it completely betrays the themes of the book. And yes, it was quite awful. And so I would not recommend watching it unless you know what you're getting into. And so then, but I would say that this is a perfect example of Hollywood ruining a perfectly well written novel. I mean, it's a perfect example of that. And so I am so disappointed that that this book was not adapted correctly. And I hopefully someday it will be because I don't think the Scarlet Letter has ever had a proper adaptation. I mean, the 1934 version is all right, but they could really immerse people in the time period now with the kind of technology they have now. And so, but if you have to watch a film version, I would recommend the 1934 um, version. And so, because I do think it is vastly superior in that regard, and Colleen Moore is pretty good, I actually think, as Hester Prynne in that. So if you want to see a more faithful version, check that out. But no, this was a terrible disappointment, and yeah, probably one of the worst films I have ever seen. And I don't use words like that lightly.